Hello, Corasordos here. Today I'm going to tell you about the first time I made a prize for a tournament. How I made the drawing in Solidworks, 3D printed with an Ender 3v2 and created an animation in Blender.
Retard alert! Retard alert, class!
For several years, near Christmas, me and my friends organize a LAN day. 20 to 30 people in a large room, each with their own PC, under the same connection. This is the cable golem. Even if we are friends, there is a lot of competition. In fact, we usually organize tournaments of our 3 or 4 favorite games. Our main game is Dota 2, a complex and very fun game that only those who have played a MOBA can understand. Here comes the fun part. My 3D printer arrived just 1 week before the event, so I had to learn how to use it, print, and assemble everything in just 1 week. I already had some ideas, but still wanted to search online if there was already something to speed up the process. In fact, I found these 2 ideas. An AEGIS, an iconic object from the game, and a stand to support it. Okay, let's start. I proceeded like this. I downloaded the STL models, imported them into Solidworks, converted meshes to body for ease of movement through the assembly, saved it as a Solidworks file, and imported it into a new assembly. In the end, I decided to implement them to my idea like this. Basically, I put the trophy in the spotlight. This is the final result, with the mates and textures already included. I already knew what colors I had to print them in, but to get a more realistic preview I wanted to add some basic textures to the models. I selected all the plexiglass parts and applied the glass texture to them. While for all the 3D printed parts 1 applied a black base texture, which I copy and paste on all the components I want. Okay, this is a metal nameplate, so metal texture. While the trophy is golden, therefore gold texture. At this point I quickly exported all the files in .stl format, one by one they were all printed. About 20 hours of printing. Then I put it all together. The rest of the components were glued with silicone. The shield was printed in 2 halves for best results. I glued it down after. For the plexiglass I used Loctite, which I do not recommend, as it ruins the surface of the plexiglass. I also laser engraved the metal tag. This is a simple connection with a 3-volt battery, LEDs and respective resistors. And this is the final mounted result. Unfortunately I don't have the videos of the assembly, nor of the 3D printing, nor of the celebrations for the winner of the tournament. But I can assure you that all the participants enjoyed it very much. That's exactly why I decided to create this animation in Solidworks to show you how the trophy was assembled. Solidworks is a software intended for mechanical engineering, so the animation tools are mostly mechanical. Even though there are tools to enhance lights, materials and scene, like PhotoWorks plugin. To create this animation I spent about 2 hours and honestly I'm not too happy with the result. Solidworks being a mechanical engineering program is very schematic and mechanical in its movements. Now I will show you how I made this simple animation. Once all the mates of all the components have been defined, which means, after I placed all the components as if they were assembled, I go to Explode View. I select the component I want to explode. Since the plexiglass case is a subassembly I can uncheck this feature and move the whole subassembly. I select the mode of movement, if along an axis or radial, in this case, along the axis. After I complete the movement I click Done, and the step is memorized. I then create a radial movement, then check this feature to move the subassembly parts. Select them, move them as much as I want, or type the value. When I'm done, I click Done. Then I can save the result with the green V. I can find it under the configuration menu. I can collapse it back to the original view. And I can animate the explode view to see the result. If I want to edit it, I click Edit feature and it opens the previous menu again. I can simply move this bar and insert a new step wherever I want. My animation involves moving components out of view of the camera. I know, it's not correct. You should hide the components that are no longer in view of the camera, but who cares? Especially since I have few components. This movement is different from the previous one, and involves rotation as well as axial movement. In this case, I select the movement along the axis, and in this field I type the degrees of rotation. And I can animate the explode view to see the result. Once the exploded view is finished, and I have already created one, I'm going to go straight to the exploded view animation. I can click Create a new motion study. Usually my animations consist of a complete revolution of the whole assembly and then an explode or collapse animation of the components. So, I press Animation Wizard. Rotate Model. Edit what I want. Then Done. Then, for animate the explode or collapse view, I press Animation Wizard again. Select Collapse. Set Start and Duration. The animation of the collapse view is complete. There is one last thing to do to complete the base animation. I have to move the camera, zooming in on the parts being assembled. I do it this way. I place myself on the timeline. I place the view where I want the camera movement to start. Right-click on the orientation and camera line and select Place Key. I position the view where I want the movement of the camera to end. Right-click on the orientation and camera line and select Place Key. Now the camera movement is memorized on the timeline. I repeat this process as many times as I want to move the view.
Another one. Another one.
Once the animation is completed, what I have to do is export the video. Just click Save Animation. Select the format, the frames per second, the resolution, and click Save. And basically this is the easiest way to create an animation of assembled components in SolidWorks. And now I'll show you what I created in Blender.
Oh, hell no!
I want to underline that I am not a skilled Blender user. To make you understand my level of skill, this was my first animation. And I know it may seem like a brave choice. But luckily I have a great motivational coach.
Do it!
So, I tried to replicate this animation in Blender. And this is the result. For this animation I spent about 10 hours. And I'm satisfied enough to be my first try. This is a behind the scenes of my project. I basically created several cameras. Placed in the positions I wanted to shoot. Created a quick animation for each one. Created lights for each camera. And finally I merged all the animations. I know, there would be endless changes to improve this animation. The main ones I don't like are the textures and the lighting. But as a first project it's okay for me. I still don't feel able to give any advice in Blender, especially on textures and lights. So I will quickly show the steps to create the animation. First of all I have to export my files to STL. Then I have to import them all together in Blender. They will be in the same location as you exported them. I delete light and camera. Then I adjust the view where I want the camera. Next I create a new camera. Click Ctrl plus Alt plus num underscore pad underscore 0 to set the camera in the current view. With S I can change the scale, to find the camera more easily. Now I create an empty that I move to the center of the scene. It will be my focal point. Then I add an object constraint to the camera. This must track to the focal point. For more order I created collections, where I'm going to move the objects. Now I have to bring the scene to life by animating the camera and model. I can do it with the timeline. First I move the camera. I position myself at 0 frame on the timeline. I select the object that I have to animate, in this case the camera. I click I select rotation and location. Then I move by how many frames I want and I move the camera where I want the animation to end. Then I press I again and select rotation and location. I created the first movement. Now I can do the same thing with the other objects. Timeline at 0. I select the objects I want to move. Location and rotation. I move the timeline. I move objects. Here I had fun moving objects to random positions. But if you want you can move the objects only on one axis, by clicking G plus the axis where you want to move it. Then, I select all the objects that I moved. I click I and select location and rotation. Simple. I created the first animation. Here, in the graph editor, I can quickly define the type of interpolation. Can I leave it automatic with these presets? Or I can edit it manually. I also added a point light to the scene, which I animated to give a more sparkling effect. Done with the animation I can create the textures. I won't go into too much depth with the texture topic, because I don't feel able to do it yet. In the shading menu there are the necessary tools. I simply assigned a base color for all 3D printed parts. While for the plexiglass I created a simple glass effect. For this effect it is necessary to set cycles as render engine. Done with the textures I can go to the export of the video. Here I can set the frame rate of my scene. It is recommended to do it at the beginning of the project. Here I set the output format. Here I can render my creation. Be careful, it could take hours, many hours. Also for this I followed a tutorial. 5 tips for faster renderings in Blender cycles. From Kaizen Tutorials. Go follow his channel. It was very useful to me. I leave the link in the description. I'd say it was very useful for decreasing the render time but with the same result. I won't show you how to create everything else because there are hundreds of tutorials done very well, and as I repeat I feel like I don't have the skills to teach anyone. A lot of errors considering I'm a newbie. As a first animation I can say I'm satisfied. If you've come this far, thank you and I hope I taught you something, or at least to have told you a funny story. If so, please leave a like. And for more stories or fun creations don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. See you next time.